Hello friends, welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make smothered chicken legs. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make this. There's really not a lot going on here. You got some chicken legs, you've got the stuff to make the gravy, and some good seasoning for this. And that really is what we're going to work with here. If you needed to add another chicken leg to this, or two, you possibly could easily. And it's still going to work really well for you. So you could go up to 6 if you wanted to. It's not a problem. But everything you see here is what we're using, and we're going to get started with this with our medium onion, and we're going to cut this into smaller pieces because we really want to make sure that it's cut up to a point where it'll cook really well. We don't want any large hunks of onion in this, but we do want them to make sure they cook through completely, so that way they don't actually have a crunch when you're eating your gravy from what we're putting this into. So go ahead, cut it up, make sure it's broken up, move to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and start mixing our dry ingredients. So we have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning, and 1 teaspoon of chicken seasoning. Then from there we're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and a tablespoon of onion powder. And then we're adding 1 tablespoon of garlic powder and 1 teaspoon of paprika. And once this is all in here, we're going to mix this up a little bit because we want to make sure all these seasonings mix throughout the flour so it's all distributed. Now, one thing we are going to do is we're going to reserve about 3 tablespoons of flour from this because we're going to use it later to make the gravy, but we want the seasoning in it. So go ahead and put some in a little bowl to the side so that way we can bring it back later, so that way we can use it when we start making the gravy. But for now, we're going to go ahead and coat the chicken legs. So I have my chicken legs. I have at least 4 of them. Like I said, you could add more to it. Just bring them in, roll them around to where they are coated in the flour to get a good coating on the outside, and then just do them one at a time until you get them all done. And then once we're done with this, we're going to move on to the next step. But we want to go ahead and make sure they get a really good coating on them, so when we cook them up, they'll have kind of like this crispiness on the outside, and that's what we're looking for in this. Now, one good thing about cooking these in this recipe, when you put them in the gravy, and you're going to cook them for quite a while after you've already just cooked them on their own, these are going to get really tender to the point where you can just like stick a fork in it and pull the meat off. It's just going to come off that easily, and it's going to have a wonderful taste to it because these things are going to be really easy to eat. It's just going to be break it up, eat it with the gravy, mashed potatoes or rice, whatever you're serving it with, and you're fine. So in a large pan, we're adding 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, and we're going to turn this up to at least medium-high heat because we want to cook this chicken, but we don't want to actually like scorch it. So that's why I say kind of keep it towards the medium to high side. We don't want to go high. So bring in your chicken, and we're going to cook this until it's golden brown, which means we're going to rotate it as it's cooking. I would say at least 5 minutes per side or so. The thing is, it doesn't have to be completely cooked when you bring it out of the pan. We just want to go for the golden outside because this is going to return to gravy later on and cook for like 35 minutes. So it's going to have time to cook even more. The whole thing right now is just to cook it, rotate it, and get it golden on the outside. And then just make sure that, it's to a point where the outside is done. The inside will cook in the gravy later on because it's going to be covered and to a temperature to where it's actually going to make it cook through. So go ahead and rotate your chicken until it's completely done. And like I said, I would go for about 5 minutes on each side. You're going to get golden, but just make sure that you don't get to a point where it gets too browned or too cooked. And once you get this done, we're going to end up removing this from the oil. We just want to make sure, like I said, these have a golden outside before you do anything else to them. So you're going to need a plate to pull these out onto once we get to that stage. But when you bring the chicken out, we're going to leave the oil in the pan because we want to make sure that it stays in there for the onion and then for the gravy. So just look at your chicken, make sure you're to the point where you're ready to pull it out, and just go ahead and put it onto your plate. And then we're going to move on to the next step, which means we're going to bring in that onion that we cut up. So go ahead and get this out of the way, and we'll move on to the next step. So now that your pan is emptied of the chicken, you can see there's still some debris in there. There's oil. We're using that. It's going to work for us. That's a wonderful thing. And just add your onion in. And we're going to cook this onion for at least 3 minutes or so to start softening it up, start cooking it, get it going to where it needs to. And then after it's been in there for the 3 minutes, we are going to add 2 teaspoons of minced garlic to this. So go ahead and cook this. Then once the garlic hits, we're going to cook the garlic for an additional minute. So that means at that point the onions have cooked for about 4 minutes. But you only want that garlic in there from 30 seconds to a minute, because you don't want to scorch it, you don't want to burn it. Because garlic, you know, when it gets that smell, it smells really good, it's wonderful. But when it goes past, it will get a foul taste to it, and you really don't want to mess that up. So we'd, like I said, cook it for at least a minute, but not much more than that. And then we're just going to keep stirring it up as it's cooking to make sure that it's getting moved around and not sitting in one place. And then we're going to remove the garlic and the onion from the pan. You can sit it on with the chicken if you want to, like on the side of a plate. That's perfectly fine. And just pull it out of there. But we're leaving the oil in there because we're going to use that in a second to actually make our gravy with. So go ahead and get out as much as you can get. You might not be able to get it all out, and that's perfectly fine. But this is where a slotted spoon is your friend. It helps you get out the stuff without actually taking the oil with you. And then we're going to add in that reserved flour that we had earlier that we put in a bowl to the side. And just mix it through. And we're going to cook this for at least 2 minutes. Because we want to make sure that we cook out the flour taste. But we want it to actually cook a little bit before we do anything else to this. So stir it up. Do your thing for like 2 minutes. And then after that, we're going to add 2 cups of chicken stock to this, but we're not going to put it all in at once. We're going to put a little bit in, actually break up what's in the pan, bring a little more in, break it up some more, and get it to a point where everything in that pan is breaking up into the chicken stock, so that way there are no hard pieces in this and there's no solid pieces. Just keep doing it and add a little chicken stock as you go, and by the time you get to the end of dumping that all in, you're going to have this completely broken up, and that's what we're trying to do here. So keep stirring it as you go. The one thing that's really important is to stir it, and this is where the slotted spoon comes in to help you, because it's going to help move things around the pan. And as this is thickening, as you can see mine did there, then we're going to add in 1 cup of milk, and then we're going to continue to stir this because we want this to thicken up again. And this is going to give it like this creamy gravy thing going on here that has such a great taste. And the good thing is you had all those seasonings that was in the flour that add to this, plus whatever was still in the oil in the pan. So you've actually gotten a lot going on here to give this a great taste. So stir it until it thickens. It's important to keep this moving, and as you can see, once you go to a certain point, it will thicken up just like this. And then once we get it to this point, we're going to add things back into it. So we're going to bring back in our chicken, and then after that the onions and the garlic, so that way they go into this mix. So once you get your chicken into this, just kind of space it out. You don't want it laying over top of each other. You don't want it crowding. Like if you had to do 6 pieces of chicken, just make sure they're all different places in the pan, because you want them to have time to get the heat. You don't want them over top of each other, not getting a good chance to cook. So my chicken is back in here, and then I'm getting ready to add my onions and garlic back in, and just scoop them into the middle, and then you can just move this around as you need to, and spoon a little bit of the gravy over top of the chicken. Now you're going to rotate this chicken as it's cooking, and you know it's going to be in there for 30 to 35 minutes. You're going to cover it, but you do need to actually move it around a little bit, flip it over, and get a good coating of the gravy on it. Now the good thing about this is you can serve this with rice, you can serve this with mashed potatoes, or whatever you want to do. You could probably even serve this with some noodles, and it would be wonderful. But the great taste of this works with so many different things. But I used mashed potatoes when I served mine, and when it came back, it looked something like this, and this had the best taste to it. And the meat was basically just fall off the bone, and it was wonderful. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.